In today's video of inZoi, we are building the room of wonderful JD and Chris Turk from SCRUBS Beginners. Why? I'm going to talk you through that a little bit later. But so, welcome back with the next video of inZoi, and we are testing the character studio and the building mode a little bit more in today's video. You are going to see a bit of a time lapse in front of you while I'm talking you through a couple of caveats. I have a bit of problems I had with both the build mode and the character studio. These are very nitpicky things, so both of them are already very strong, but there are a couple of things that at least hindered me to achieve the result I wanted to. In specific, these are still remainders of early feedback I had a half a year ago, and I know that a couple of these things will be fixed, but what am I even talking about? So let's start with the first thing. When you are building or creating a Zoi in the character studio, which is absurdly powerful and absurdly great, you have one specific issue, and that is the control over specific areas of your head. This is the overall form of your head, and then also the nose portion. So the main issue I have here is that you need to go through a couple of pre-built, I think presets is the right wording for that, in order to have a specific go-to shape. And this is gonna define the one you're going for. I think in particular, if you're creating your own Zoi, it's not really as important because you basically can create it from the get-go. But as soon as you want to create something from a modern or even recent or ancient or nostalgic character or whatnot, you have a specific idea to go for. And the fact that you cannot change the overall head type or the nose type individually is a little bit of an issue for me. So this is why I didn't spend too much time in this specific video to make the characters wonderfully perfect. They are not even super close, I'll admit that, but I also wanted to just test out a couple of things. And as the name of the series is SCRUBS, I wanted to focus on making the SCRUBS right. For those of you who don't know what that is, so because a lot of people not being native in English watching these videos, I'm not native either. But in case you didn't notice, at least 50 people will then tell me again that I'm sounding German in the comments now. But SCRUBS is basically the wear that you have in the hospital. That is basically the it's not security wear apparently, but it's kind of the hygiene stuff, the colored clothing you're wearing, and the clothing is always according to the job type you're doing in the hospital. And in the specific case of SCRUBS series, JD and Turk, obviously Chris Turk, have different scrubs apparently, and this light green lime type of thing is for Chris, who is working as a kind of chirurg. I've no idea how you call that in English, but that's basically two type of doctors. I'm like, when I was watching the series, I was very young and I watched it in German apparently, so I don't know all the words, but like I think the one Turk was the one who's going to do all the operations and making sure that these things are working, and JD and Elliot, they both were the ones to do like kind of the analysis and making sure to have the medication right. That's kind of the translation I wanted to get into. And while I was speaking you through, you see that I have already changed the head form, the preset entirely to get to a better preset of Turk. I didn't get anywhere near the one I wanted to, and there are two things that kind of stopped me from getting there. So first one is, again, that I couldn't change the head form other than just changing the width a little bit, but I just couldn't get really into it. And then the second one is I didn't jump too much into making sure I don't use the symmetry mode all of the times. Now, for those of you who don't know, there is a little icon in the bottom part of your screen which is called the symmetry mode. So as long as this one is activated, you will always have symmetry to both sides of the head. Now, as this is visually appealing, it's not realistic whatsoever. A human has not a perfectly symmetric face. That's not gonna happen. And there are like all these TikTok videos where people are creating the perfect symmetry face, how you call that one, the perfect symmetric face, I guess you would say that like this, and then it totally sees odd, like it just looks very odd at the end of the day. And so if you want to create some very realistic looking characters, you better also want to disable the symmetry mode at some point to just get in with a bit of more realism. But yet again, I just wanted to do some tests and also see what kind of versatile stuff we have in here. And JD, as you can tell from this image already, is a lot closer to the real life example. And obviously both characters are now very much grown men, and they are a lot older. I can also highly recommend, like after a while, I was listening to their podcast. What was it called again? From Doctors and Nurses or something like that. And then they talk you through the entire seasons of Scrub and talk a lot about the backstage stuff. And that's how I got to know a little bit more about Scrubs as a series and as like the background story. Now, as promised, while we see JD being created on screen, and again, he's a lot closer to the real life character, but there is still that issue that the characters you create in the studio still look quite different from how they look in game then, which may actually be the case because the studio is very much fledged out and focused on the creation, and the graphics really focus only on the creation, and ray tracing and so on is not really happening too much because you just have that kind of studio environment, while in the game there's a lot of ray tracing, lighting happening and shading and blah blah blah, so they really look a little bit odd. Now, before I talk you through why Scrubs is so important to me, in case you're interested, and if not, well, you still have to listen through it, or you skip just forward to the real-time part, I don't care, you make or you do whatever you want. It's kind of funny, we don't have workwear in this game as far as I'm concerned. Maybe I didn't see that, or maybe I could have just jumped over in the workwear section, but I'm not sure if we have the hospital wear in here, and so this is why I decided to, you know, just make sure that I have this one, but potentially I just overlooked it. That's maybe one of the positive problems, if I want to call it this way. This game is freaking packed already in the state it is, and it's nowhere near where it should be, and all the updates of the roadmap they have discussed in their showcase video just kind of let us know where this is going. So there will be a lot of content in the coming days, guys, where I'm going to test a lot of different portions of the game simply to make sure that we have a good insight in all these things. So this is the first test to see how versatile it is to make some kind of cool, I don't know, series or movie adaptations or do something fun like this, because I figure a lot of people would like to do that. And in one of the next videos, or maybe even in the next video, we will be testing the building system really to its veins, to its cores. But now, while we are creating the room, let's quickly talk about why I'm so much into Scrubs as a series. Like, there are a ton of like hospital, you know, doctors, nurses series out there, like Emergency Room, Dr. House, and The Good Doctor, blah blah blah, like all of these. My wife likes to watch a lot of these. She's a total Dr. House nerd and so on. And while I also like this series, I've been working in a hospital for like almost 1.5 years, so 15 months or so. In Germany, there is something, or actually there used to be something, that is called the Zivildienst, which is literally translated the civil service, but it just kind of doesn't translate well into English. So what it used to be is that in Germany, all men aged 18 needed to go to fulfill some military service originally, but you know, apparently things changed over time, and if you said, like, you could always decide to not go to the military and then tell them you know you don't want to do this because of pacifist or whatever, and then you can't just deal that with your own kind of ideology. That's fine, and then I tell you, okay, but you're gonna have to work in our social system, and one of the things you could do is to go into the hospital. So I was working for like 15 months in a hospital, and I was like, you know, pushing the wheelies and making sure to bring people from A to B and supporting the nurses and supporting all the people on the stations, and like that was a very stressful yet very insightful time of my life. And I gotta say, I developed the utmost respect you could ever have for this type of job. And even though I knew that this is never gonna be my job, and I absolutely am not able to fulfill this job to any degree, but I learned how much of a crazy job that is, and how much respect every single person in his role should have for the people working in the hospital. Like, starting with the circumstances you work with, like all the bacteria and all the chances to get a certain you know, illness and disease is like relatively high, but also the factor of stress is anything like you could imagine from your other job. Like, you know, I'm working in an advertising agency, and yes, of course, there's a lot of stress. We do a lot of overwork and over hours, but like, no one is dying, you know, and no one is actually losing anything crazy, like, you know, part of a body, or losing their mind, literally, or losing consciousness or whatnot. Like, there is the real danger is only that some freaking rich people lose a bit of their money. So that's the biggest risk in our job, and so are a lot of jobs, you know. The biggest risk is that some already rich people lose a little bit of the richness by being just a little bit less rich, but still freaking rich. So I guess that's why I learned to deal with stress very, very well, and it's part of the reason why I am only able to do YouTube in the first place, because I can deal with stress in a completely different way. Anyways, a lot of trivia about me. I hope you're interested, because otherwise that video is going to be very boring for you. But as there is a real-time part showing you around, I don't worry too much. You'll get the insight. There are a couple of little tricks I used, by the way, to make certain things work in this game, because apparently some things just don't really work the way I want them to work in this build mode, but I think we should talk about them in the dedicated video, just to plug here a little bit of a cliffhanger. But yeah, back to the fact why Scrubs is so meaningful to me, and like why it meant so much to me. Because from all the series I've watched about hospitals, and naturally being in a hospital, you are a bit more drawn to watching those. By far, Scrubs, and this is crazy, I guess to say, but by far is the most realistic one for me personally. And even though it's been done to have a very comedic focus and being very humorous and being very focused on the kind of humor evolving around the characters, like, you know, the janitor and so on. But funnily enough, the vibe and the way the hospital switches between very lighthearted and then very moody and very kind of crazy life-deciding situations that really break this kind of humorous and very lighthearted mood is very spot on to what I've experienced. And even though there are tremendous differences between the US health system and the German one, so there's not really that much of an interference when it comes to how they work and how they're shaped, but like the core of the feeling and the vibe and so on really has been spot on, and it just thinking about this still today gets me some goosebumps, because again, that was a very pregnant that's the wrong word, my German brain kind of created that weird one. So it's not like a pregnant, no one is pregnant here, like actually not anymore, but it was a very decisive and shaping, is that the right word? I don't even know, situation or like time of my life, because it did define a lot of my character traits, I guess, when it comes to thinking about what really matters. And this is why this series is so good, at least in my opinion. You know, everyone can have their own opinions, but that's mine, and this is why I wanted to start it with this. That said, I do know that I may have done a strategic issue, problem, mistake over here, if you will, or a big fail, so maybe not a lot of people will click the video, because Scrubs apparently is rather old, just like I am. So maybe a lot of you guys will even not know Scrubs, and that is the question now. If you're watching till this point in time, potentially you either are interested in my weird stories, or you're actually interested in Scrubs, so that's very welcome. But if not, let me know in the comments down below if you've ever watched Scrubs or not, and if you do know Scrubs. Like, obviously you can know about the series, but I've never watched it. So if not, I highly recommend, by the way. But make sure to leave out the last season, or the last 2 seasons actually, but the last season, most of which just don't watch that one. But the first ones you can easily watch. A very great series in my opinion. Great actors, just great overall kind of composition of the series. So I'm in love, as you can tell from this video, but also I'm in love with what I can do. By the way, the overall proportions of the house are not correct. Like, I just wanted to do a quick test. I will do a bit more of a very detailed one in the coming days. I'm not going to reveal what that is, but now last question for you guys. If you want me to do more of these things, and you have different series in mind that have a very iconic room, let me know in the comments down below. But in a couple of seconds, I'll hand you over to the RRR, the real-time Rudi, and he'll be talking you through this in the game. So here's me to handing you over. Alright, so here we are in the game, and you can see this is our little build over here, and basically what I do find very interesting is the possibilities you have to build in this game already. Some people have commented on the showcase and a couple of times already in the review video I made a couple months ago that maybe everything looks a little bit too posh and too polished, and I do actually agree. So a couple of things like a bit of a more older sofa also would be nice. However, one thing I wanted to show you real quick is, if we go back to the build mode real quick, there is obviously the option to change things up a little bit by using the AI texture or your own. So you can basically do run down old brown leather. Like this. I'm not sure if this is exactly how you write this, but whatever. And then we'll wait for a second to see if it is better to get your own kind of textures if you fancy doing so. But we're gonna do save and use that one. I mean, you know, that's a little bit weird, and we do definitely have to change the pattern style a little bit like so. So what we could do, leather is also written wrong, by the way. Also, let me just quickly change the music. It's a little bit too loud. So let's put the master volume down to 29. Ich put percent. So here goes that. And go back to the sofa. And let's just do that again. Run down old dark brown leather. Seamless texture. And then say create and see what this game comes up with. Again, seamless textures yourself. There are some very nice ones out there. So I'm going to save this one and use that. So you can basically do exactly this if you want to. So this is a way more rundown sofa over here. And then you can also change a couple of the reflections if you want to have this super reflective or less glossy to make it very brown. And then you can also make it a little bit more metallic. Sometimes that works. And then get the, you know, just get like a bit like this. I don't know. It does look a lot more run down now, and you could basically do the same with many other options as well. So for me, potentially, this is the best way to emulate things like that, because you can really do that. And also using a couple of tricks here to put some certain things on top of some of the builds. Really love the new system where you have an option to really quickly check on which pieces you want. Again, this is just like a little test over here. So let's go back into the game mode to have not the color change the whole time. But yeah, I do really love how the whole thing looks. And let me just zoom in. So that is now the inside view. Again, my characters, they haven't been the best as ever. Tap switch to shoulder view. There you go. This is the first person view I was looking for. So it's so cool to just explore that all yourself, you know. Oh, where's the wall gone? Is the wall just gone, or just do I think I'm in the wrong wall mode? So this is why. Yeah, I should go to the full wall mode, and then we should be able to see the walls. Yeah, there you go. It's a tad bit too high over here. I don't really know how that was to bring these walls down. There is a way to do that, but I'm not sure exactly what I was doing wrong. But I love the fact how this works. You know. Oops, I forgot to get rid of this thing over here. What I'm really in love with is also the fact that you can almost everywhere squeeze yourself through. Also, let's just quickly get rid of this thing over here. That's just like in the way. So there you go. And go back into the game. Woo! There we go. Switch to the shoulder view. Oh man, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I'm loving the detail, loving the graphics, loving how everything looks. Look, JG's reading a little bit down here, back in the... Look at that. Yeah, I mean, again, you know, my characters didn't come out like perfectly fine, but at least you can tell. This was just for a first test, and I'm very, very happy with how the first test went. Just very happy with how this build turned out. Like from the outside, it's particularly shabby. But yeah, if you like this, I can really see me turning this into a series of different, well, series rooms. And if you have an idea what to do, obviously Simpsons and so on could be a thing. But make sure to comment down below if you have an idea what we could do. Also, forgot to put a TV down here, by the way. Anyways. And let me know in the comments if you have ideas what type of rooms we can realize, and I'm willing to go even more into details and try a couple more tricks and tips how to improve building, because there are certain things I already found out you could do to improve your buildings a little bit. But yeah, let me know. This was for a first test to get something cool out to you, and now it's all down to you guys. Please let me know in the comments down below how you liked the video, what you think about the character building, the building of the room, and if you found this interesting, which type of rooms I I shall do in the next one. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more inZoi stuff in the upcoming future and in the build up to the early access starting in about a week. So thank you so much, and I'll talk to you in the next one.